So simplifying radicals. If I told you to evaluate them, you could use a calculator and you'd get a decimal. The square root of 60 is, I don't know, 7.6-ish. It's somewhere between 49 and 64, which are 7 and 8. So 60, it's probably more like 7.7 and a half or something. We're learning how to simplify radicals, which I believe you learned a little bit in geometry. What you're looking for is to break this apart into perfect squares and whatever's left over. Because remember, in math, whenever we're breaking stuff apart, you have to make sure it's equivalent to what you started with. It's just a different form. So you're looking to find the biggest perfect square that goes into 60. Luckily for you, I know you know your perfect squares pretty well since we factored for so long the difference of squares. The biggest perfect square that goes into 60 that I can think of is 4. And 4 goes into 60 15 times. So that's the biggest perfect square. Once you know the perfect square part, you can take it out of that. What's the square root of 4? 2. And you write your leftover next to it. So the square root of 60 is equivalent to 2 radical 15. You'll hear me say square root or you'll hear me say radical. So I could have said radical 60 is equal to 2 radical 15. Or I could have said the square root of 60 is equal to 2 square root of 15. I usually use the word radical. This is how you simplify. So you can also multiply radicals. In other words, if you had the square root of 3 times the square root of 5, that's equivalent to the square root of 15. That's just your answer. Depending on what the question says, you can either build up or break apart. So for example 1, it says the square root of 48. So I'm looking for the biggest perfect square that goes into 48, which Mrs. Collins knows is square root of 16, and it goes in 3 times. Square root of 16 is 4, so you get 4 radical 3. Once you start incorporating variables into this, you follow the same concept. The biggest perfect square that goes into 45 is 9. And the biggest perfect square, that's m squared. Well, if it's an even, hold on, we're having a water break. Avery, your water's out there. I left it out. Oh, here. Hold on, we have a water break. Go, it's ice cold. Oh, go, go. She's bringing cucumbers. She has a virtual soccer practice right now. Dog is going out there. Bree, no, stay over here. Oh, she says hi. Anyway, so back to this problem. Sorry for the derailment we had there for a second. Square root of 9m squared. These are both perfect. If the exponent is even, it means it's a perfect square. So the square root of 9 is 3. The square root of m squared is m. Bree. No. And the radical 5 stays. Good girl. You can always pause my video too. So we have this problem. Biggest perfect square. Another 9 with 10 left over. And the biggest perfect square is x to the 4th because it's the biggest even number underneath x to the 5th. Take the square root of each term. And there you go. Sorry, I'll leave that there for another second. You can always screenshot these. So we have a multiplication problem. This says the square root of 6 times the square root of 3, which I know it's perfectly legal for me to do that. Now that's not in simplified form though, because I can do that. There is a perfect square that goes into 18. You didn't see it here because of the way it was written. Number 5, that's what that means, which means this, which means this. Now the general rule is if you square a radical or if you square a square root, it pretty much just comes out every time. And lastly, I think Avery just came over to tell me that someone at her virtual soccer practice just farted. That's fantastic. This is real life, people. If anyone's watching, please say you're watching. I don't want to say follow me. I'm not a cool YouTuber or anything, but you know, I'm trying to help. Let me know what you think.